OpenAI released something that I think is pretty spectacular. And it's kind of a sign of the times that we're living in right now. Because it wasn't just 2 weeks prior that I was wishing our language models could produce better images. You see, a problem that you commonly run into, the reason why image manipulation with LLMs stink, is because you can say, hey, this is my cat. I want you to take this image and put on a detective hat and a monocle, and you're going to get some completely different cat. The reason that this is the case is because large language models are multimodal only on the input. They can take images, or these days sound, but the output is text. So when you say, here to look at this image, I want to make something that's like this, but modified, what it's going to do is create a description of that text and send that to some other model, some AI image generation model, to produce an image. But text can only convey so much. What you really want is a model that can actually produce an image based on the image above. That's what OpenAI introduced. So with this OpenAI model, you can say, here's my cat. I want you to take that cat, stick on a detective hat and a monocle, and look, it's not perfect. You can tell that it's a little bit different, but it's the same cat. You can definitely tell that. Very cool that you can do this. So if all you could do is stick funny clothing on cats, it would be pretty lame. But think about all the cool stuff that you'll be able to do this in the near future. You can make sophisticated infographics. You can make marketing material. You can take your crappy matplotlib charts and convert it to something that is presentable to your customers. You can make game assets. They're just unimaginable capabilities that you can do just by the ability to have consistent image generation. But I think the really cool innovation is going to be with visual reasoning. We've long known that models do well to take time to reason. They don't have any type of internal monologue like we do. So whereas we would pause after a question, think about the response, and then come up with an answer, models just start creating. The only way that they can think is by creating the words themselves. So for this reason, we've done a lot of things like put, let's think by step into prompts, and they've done a better job about generating stuff. I think soon we'll be able to do, with these new models, we'll be able to do stuff like that with visual reasoning. Let's take an example just to demonstrate what we're looking at. Matthew Bergman has a really cool kind of go-to reasoning challenge that he gives to new models. He says, I put a marble in a glass. The glass is turned upside down and put on a table. Then the glass is picked up and put into the microwave. Where's the marble? Now, as a human, you can't help but visualizing that process while I say it to you, and you can see what happens to the marble when we take it out. You understand how the real world works, and you see exactly where we've left the marble as the glass goes into the microwave. But these models think in text, and text is not the best medium for reasoning through the real world. As an example, I'll give a slightly more complicated problem. I added an extra couple of features. Here it is. I set a plate on a table and a glass next to it. I set a marble on the plate. Then I picked up the marble, drop it in the glass. Then I turn the glass upside down and set it on the plate. Then I pick up the glass and put it in the microwave. Where's the marble? Okay, so in a purely text GPT 4.0 model, here's what we got. It says confidently right at the beginning, the marble is in the microwave inside the glass. Wrong. But weirdly, it goes through and reasons about every step, realizes that the glass is now empty when you pick it up and put it in the microwave, incorrectly comes to the right answer, and absolutely ignores the fact that it got it wrong. So partial credit at best. It totally got it wrong and then didn't tell us even when it fixed it. Didn't admit its mistake. Let's take a look how visual reasoning can improve just text reasoning. I'm going to give the same prompt to the Chat GPT GPT-4o model with this picture of my real plate, my real marble, and my real glass. Same exact prompt, but I've added some extra information about how it should generate its chain of thought reasoning one image at a time, predicting the salient features. It does an interesting job. So at first it says, here's the problem setup. It's got my fake hand there. That's interesting. And it says, all right, in the step one, we've got the marble on the plate, we're ready to go. By step two, we've put the marble in the glass. Yep. By step three, we've turned the glass over onto the plate. In the image, the glass is upside down on the plate, trapped inside. Then we pick up the glass. Doesn't really pick it up, we're just kind of touching it. It says the marble remains on the plate and is no longer contained. And then finally, confidently, it's still got the marble inside the cup. So it's cool that it's creating really consistent graphics. They are a little bit like, they look like they've been like airbrushed or something. They don't look just like my original image, but it's really cool that they're at least fairly consistent. But obviously what's not cool is it got the problem totally wrong. So I think the problem here is that the models aren't actually trained yet for visual reasoning. All that we talk about, all that OpenAI talked about in their debut post was like how to do cool lettering. That's neat. They do a really spectacular job with the lettering. And they talk about image manipulation instructions, and they're really good at following image manipulation, but none of the instructions in the examples are about reasoning for like, here's the current step, what's the next step? So I think we need that. We need training data where models are reasoning through spatial problems. You show like this shape, and thank you, Matt. Thank you, MacBook. I won't do that anymore. You reason through some shape and figure out how it's manipulated to create a new shape, and can the model predict that? Or you take a three-dimensional object and say, what's going to happen when I rotate this? What will it look like? But you can also do other visual reasoning things, even in like social spaces. You can say, look at this situation with these two people. Someone has just been unfair to someone else. How is their facial expression going to change? How's their body language going to change? And the models are going to be able to start picking up social cues and stuff like that. It's going to get really interesting. All right. So this is only halfway there. It'll be cool when we can say to a model, let's think step by step in pictures. But what's really going to be cool is this change that we had with the O1 model and the DeepSeek R1 model, where rather than having to tell them think by step, they have the reasoning baked in. And not only are they like bulldozing through the reasoning and occasionally like the images above, just totally going through the wrong steps. The cool thing we saw with O1 and the R1 models is that they can reason themselves into a corner, realize that they've messed up, back up, and try new reasoning. So in the same way, I think we can have reasoning training to have models look at an image, think through a situation, predict different images of what's coming next, and actually start following a train of thought, exploring the real world, comparing the reality with what actually just happened, course correcting, doing all sorts of really interesting reasoning work. I think it's going to be a real big boon to how we deal with robots and interaction in the real world in the future. And even though, there's some pitfalls right now, it's very slow. If you played with the ChatGPT reasoning, it's not super fast. But I think, for one thing, the models internally, when they're talking to themselves, don't have to make the full high-fidelity pictures. There's apparently a couple levels of images they make, and they can make only the dumb images and still get some better reasoning through thinking at least a little bit visually. And also, the simple fact that we have trained the model's own visual reasoning means even if we don't have them create images, the words that they produce are now going to be joined with what they learned from their spatial reasoning training. So I think this is all going to be an incredible boon for visual reasoning, for uh, agents in realistic environments. And I think that 2026 will be the year of the robots. Huh? Thanks, guys.